Good morning. How's everyone doing? Lively bunch today. Welcome to Corinth Community Church. We're really excited you're here. This is our final week down here in the bistro. Did I hear a woohoo? You don't like the dungeon? The bistro, I like it down here. It's been cozy. Chris and I were talking this morning about it's kind of like a bittersweet feeling. It's been kind of nice for a little bit. We had a little home, leaving everything set up. It's been a blessing from Christian Victory, what they've done for us. But we're aspiring to greater things ahead, so it's kind of awesome. So next week we have a joint service upstairs that we're leading worship with, and then we're back to the college. And we're going to do a little tour of the college after that. So it's just an interesting couple weeks ahead of us. We're just kind of bouncing around and kind of back to what we used to do, right? The mobile church. But it's going to be awesome, right back in the heart of the college. So for those of you who didn't know that, now you're up to date. Now, why don't you stand? Now we're going to sing some worship together. Through every battle, through every heartbreak, through every circumstance, I believe that you are my fortress. Oh, you are my portion. You are my hiding place. Oh, I believe you are the way and the truth, the light. I believe you are the way, the truth, the light. I believe through every blessing, through every promise, through every breath I take. I believe that you are provider, you are protector, you are the one that I love. Oh, I believe you are the way and the truth, the light. Oh, I believe you are the way, the truth, the light. I believe you are. Now sing it out. It's a new horizon. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. All my fears and doubts, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I'm here with you. And it's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. All my fears and doubts, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I believe that you are the way, the truth, the light. Oh, I believe that you are the way, the truth, the light. I believe you. It's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that are new. All my fears and doubts, well, they can all come to, because they can't stay long when I'm here with you. and it's a new horizon, and I'm set on you. And you meet me here today with mercies that I knew. All my fears and doubts, they can all come true, because they can't stay long when I believe that you are the way, the truth, the life. Oh, I believe that you are the way, and the truth, the life. I believe you are. I give you my life, I give you my trust, Jesus, 'cause you are my God, and you are enough, Jesus, Jesus. My heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. My heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. I lay down my life, I take up my cross, Jesus, 'cause you are my God, whatever the cost, Jesus, Jesus. And my heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. And my heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. And all to Jesus I surrender. All to you I freely give. No, I will ever love and trust you. In your presence I will live. And all to Jesus I surrender. All to you I freely give. No, I will ever love and trust you. In your presence I will live. 'Cause my heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. My heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. My heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. And my heart is yours, my heart is yours. Take it all, my life in your hands. and take it all, my life in your hands. Just take it all, my life in your hands. Come out of sadness from wherever you've been. Come broken hearted, let rescue begin. And come find your mercy, oh sinner, come near. 'Cause earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. And earth has no sorrow that heaven can heal. So lay down your burdens and lay down your shame, and all who are broken, lift up your face. No wanderer come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down your heart, and come as you are. There's hope for the hopeless and all those who stray. Come sit at the table, come taste the grace. There's rest for the weary, rest that endures. 'Cause earth has no sorrow that heaven can't cure. So lay down your burdens and lay down your shame, and all who are broken, lift up your face. And no wanderer come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt and lay down your heart, and come as you are, and come as you are, and fall in his arms. Come as you are. And there's joy for the morning, oh sinner, be still. 'Cause earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. 'Cause earth has no sorrow that heaven can't heal. So lay down your burdens and lay down your shame, lay down your shame, and all who are broken, lift up your face. And no wanderer come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, lay down, so lay down your burdens, lay down your shame, and all who are broken, lift up your face. And no wanderer come home, you're not too far. So lay down your hurt, Lay down your heart and come as you are. And come as you are. Just come as you are. And I have this hope as an anchor for my soul. You every storm I will hold to you with endless love. All my fears swept away. In everything I will trust in you. And there is hope in the promise of the cross. And you gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is an anchor for my soul, that our God will stand unshakable. Unchanging one, you who was and is to come. Your promise sure, you will not let go. 'Cause there is hope in the promise of the cross. And you gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is an anchor for my soul. Our God will stand unshaken. There's hope. And there is hope in the promise of the cross. And you gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is an anchor for my soul, that our God will stand unshakable. Your name is higher, your name is greater, and all my hope is in you. And your word unfailing, your promise unshaken, and all my hope is in you. Your name is higher, your name is greater, and all my hope is in you. And your word unfailing, your promise unshaken, and all my hope is in you. Your name is higher, your name is greater, and all my hope is in you. Your word unfailing, your promise promise unshaken, and all my hope is in you. And there is hope in the promise of the cross. And you gave everything to save the world you love. And this hope is an anchor for my soul. Our God will stand unshakable. Amen. You can grab a seat.
You know, God's timing is amazing. Here we are filling this room at just the time we need to move, right? Isn't that kind of cool? I'll never forget our first year. We spent the first, I think, 6 months or so in these classrooms. The first one was, I remember, 431. And then we moved down to 130, which is a little bigger. And probably should have stayed in 431 because the room we moved into it in the summer. And we actually had lower numbers than we did in 431, but we'd have, 15, 20 people. And I had predicted in the fall we would move to the Wutong Theater that sat 200. And I don't know about you, but I started to get cold feet. And I'll never forget Doug came and encouraged me and said, "Is this what God wants?" I said, "Well, yeah, I believe it is." "Well, let's move then." So we moved, and it just perfect timing because God just started to fill that room, and it was kind of a cool thing. Do you believe in miracles? Yeah, a lot of you do. That's good. That's good. There's a lot of people that dispute miracles. If I ask most of us, if we pigeonhole ourselves the most, a lot of us would answer sort of. It kind of depends on the miracle and who's telling me about it, right? Because if you're like me, you've had people come up to you and, they've talked about things, and amazing things, and, about, the John F. Kennedy assassination and aliens and Bigfoot and all those kind of things. And I don't know about you, but I've kind of learned in our culture to be just a little skeptical of that kind of stuff when someone's telling me about it. But in our culture, many people who talk about miracles are treated much the same way. And there's actually a lot of Christians that struggle with the concept of miracles. I remember I did a series on miracles years ago, and I had a couple people, and they were from a church background where they felt that miracles were only for the New Testament times, and once the Bible is written, we didn't need miracles anymore. And so they were highly skeptical and kind of bought into the miracles don't happen anymore. And that was actually the stance of much of the church in the first half of the 20th century, much of the evangelical church. But stuff started to happen in the 1950s, 60s, and people started getting well, and people started experiencing things, coincidences that after lining up for a while, kind of made you wonder, okay, how many coincidences does it take it before you see a trend? And so people are much more open to the supernatural now than they were, say, 50 years ago. But it needs to be said about miracles that most people qualify the miracles they're through. So we look at miracles and we can be a little skeptical. And we have this little box of where the miracles happen, and we have this box where we're just going to believe our own eyes and, use reason and things. And this today, I just got back from doing my nephew's wedding. So it was 4 days on the other side of the province, and we just had a great time. But I picked the worst Sunday to do an intellectual message. So yeah, you may not understand what I'm saying today. It's okay, I don't either. And if you just want to come along for the ride, I'm going to talk a little bit about the thinking, because I finished a book recently, C.S. Lewis's book on miracles. And I know C.S. Lewis passed away a long, long time ago, but he really spoke to today with a lot of his writings. He's a smart man. He was a man that wrote the Narnia series and wrote all kinds of books, and he was really one of the intellectual voices of the church in the first half of the 20th century. And C.S. Lewis believed in miracles. And so he wrote a whole book about it. So I'm going to do some quotes on that. But I want to talk about, our series is Apex. And I want to talk about a group of miracles. And I want to talk about them in the context of a storm. And just to give you a little background, Paul, the apostle, at one point his life was threatened, and he was arrested. And the Jewish authorities in Jerusalem, they tried to charge him. And Paul was a Roman citizen, so he had the right to appeal to Caesar. That's a very, very few people in the Roman Empire were Roman citizens. And so Paul, who was born a citizen, had the right to appeal to Caesar. So they went through, this took a number of years, a number of court cases and a number of different circumstances where Paul was before very important people. And then they put him on a ship and they sent him to Rome because he had appealed to Caesar. And Paul was so excited about that because he would get to share the message of Jesus Christ with Caesar. That would be a pretty cool thing. So they took him as a prisoner on the ship. And they traveled to, if you want to give me the map, to Crete. So they were past Cyprus and on to Crete. And it was getting to be the season in the Mediterranean when there were storms, big storms. And so ships didn't travel for a few months of the year. Their ships were not designed to be able to handle rough waters. But the captain of the ship hoped to make it to Rome before the storm struck. And Paul, God spoke to him, and he told the captain, don't do it, because it's going to end in destruction and possibly the loss of lives. But the captain, did not listen to the prisoner, who was not a sailor. He decided to, as a sailor, make an executive decision, and so they made his decision. So they pushed off from Crete. Now, where they're going to end up is Malta, which is the other place I've circled. Normally, Malta is 4 days away sailing from Crete. But they were going to be heading into the storm, and so it was actually going to take them 14 days to get where they were going. And they got off, and they weren't out for very long before a storm hit, a major storm. Such a major storm, they had named it in that part of the world. And it came down, and they began to worry. They eventually threw their cargo overboard, something a merchant, ship would never do. And they eventually tied the ship up. They ran ropes right under the ship and tied it together to hold it together. They threw the tackle overboard, and things became very hopeless. And then Paul kind of got them together and said, look, God spoke to me in a dream last night. He sent me an angel. And he said that we're all going to be saved, but this ship is going to be lost. And so they were heading into this storm, and things were pretty desperate. Paul told them let's have something to eat. They hadn't eaten in days and days. They'd been 14 days in a storm. You imagine, you wouldn't sleep. You wouldn't, you'd be loss of your life. Occasionally you'd worry about, being blown overboard. You'd have waves, coming over the ship. Storms aren't fun to be out in a ship. And they were heading into this storm, and then Paul said, okay, now's the time. The sailors let down the lifeboat, intending to leave the ship and its people and everything stuck and, without sailors. And Paul told the centurion, so the Roman soldiers cut the lifeboat loose. Another desperate move. Anyways, they saw land, and so they pushed their ship towards it, and they ended up crashing on a sandbar. The whole back of the ship collapsed, and they jumped into the water. The Romans were going to kill the prisoners, but the centurion wanted to spare Paul's life, so they didn't do that. And they basically, everybody grabbed a board and floated to shore and landed on the beach of Malta. And this is the story of miracles. Now, the miracles that happened weren't the ones you think should happen. Paul did not look into the storm and say, peace, be still, like his master had, and calm the storm. Paul didn't get out of the boat and walk on the water as his master had. These miracles were more subtle, but they were no less significant because they both encouraged, challenged, and equipped the people who heard it for what they needed to know. I identified 4 miracles here, and probably there were more, but in this event, first one is that Paul predicts they should not sail from Crete. He knew that things weren't going to go well. That was something the Lord told him. Paul's dream with the angel coming and talk to him, that was a miracle. He predicts the shipwreck without the loss of life, also unpredictable. You got to think, in those days, not a lot of people knew how to swim. We kind of take for granted because there's so much water in Ontario. A lot of us learned to swim at quite a young age, right? I remember my father throwing me in deep water, trying to teach me to swim. I almost died, but his intentions were noble. He predicts the shipwreck, so the idea, a whole bunch of people, some of them without really good water skills, and then everybody survives and makes it shore, which is the other miracle. So many things could have gone wrong, but God brings Paul to Malta. So what can I say about miracles? Well, a couple of things, but first I want to contrast, and this is probably a war you have in your own mind and heart, and this is a war that's going on in our culture at all times around whether the world is a place where miracles happen or whether miracles are a myth. And miracles are something people make up, and that there actually is a tangible, logical, scientific explanation for everything. So let me walk through. First of all, we have what we call the natural world. This is one science, a lot of scientists say they adhere to, or a lot of atheists. In the natural world, we can understand everything. Everything, even the unknown, is eventually something we can figure out or find, given enough time. That experience is the best education. The fancy word the scientists use for this is empiricism. I always laugh when someone tells me they're empiricists, because an empiricist says that they don't take anything for faith, that they believe everything is only observed by our taste, our touch, our hearing, our sight, all those kind of things. The big joke is about an empiricist and his wife were driving by some sheep in a field, and the sheep were newly shorn, and the wife said, "Look at that sheep, he's newly shorn." And the empiricist answers, "Well, he is half shorn." Because he couldn't see the other side, therefore it did not exist, right? That's empiricism. Empiricism is a little hypocritical, but the people that say they adhere to it, that's what they think is the world. That everything needs to be experienced in order to be true. Do you believe in Australia? Everybody here believe it exists? What kind of church is this? How many people have been to Australia? Anybody? Anybody here? Wow, you guys are not good empiricists. Why do you believe in Australia? Well, you've heard talk about it, you've seen it on a map, you've met people from there. Australia exists, and anybody that tells you it doesn't exist, you would consider crazy. Yet you have never experienced Australia. You've never been there. Everything has to be rational. And this comes out of the Enlightenment. This outlook has really taken a beating the last 100 or so years. And the belief was, everything has an explanation and we can uncover it and we can explain everything. And then the First World War happened, and then the Second World War happened, and then the concentration camps and the gulags and the communist revolutions and the thousands and millions, the Great Leap Forward, Cambodia, all these places happened. And we realized that the world is hardly rational. Rationality died in the furnaces and the stacked up bodies of the wars and genocides of the 20th century. But there's still people that will say, I can't believe in God because I can't rationally get my mind around it. When in reality, there is a lot that we can't get our minds around. It doesn't seem to make sense. Why do they sell hot dogs in packages of 12, but they only sell the buns in packages of 8? I figured out that you had to buy, in order to get enough, to get them to match, you had to buy 2 packs of hot dogs and 3 bags of buns. These are the questions that keep me awake at night. When I put my socks in the dryer and I pull them out and one's missing, where do they go? And Lego. Why did they design these toys that are so amazing, yet when you step on one, it sends you through the roof? To the people that believe in the natural world, the world we see is all there is. And we wonder why people despair. You look around this world with all the questions, all the things, all the banality and evil. And then we look at our lives as we strut on and move forward and break down and pass away into the night. And we tell everyone, this is all there is. And then wonder why people lose themselves in narcissistic nihilism. People are eating themselves to death. They're drugging themselves to death. They are drinking themselves to death. They are sexing themselves to death. They are doing all these things to death. We live in a world of excess where we've had more than we've ever had before. We have more time. We have more leisure. We have longer holidays. We have more ability to travel, all these kind of things. And yet the number one struggle in our society is anxiety and depression. Because you weren't designed for just this life. C.S. Lewis once said, if you have a hunger that cannot be met by anything in this world, perhaps it's because you've been made for another. We believe in what we call the spiritual world. First of all, we recognize our limitations. We recognize that there are things that we cannot and never will understand. Take the concept of eternity. When did time begin? Scientists have wrestled with this. And it's interesting watching scientists who would claim to be rational marvel and move into metaphysics to where their answers are more wildly spiritual than the concept of a God. Education is a tool chest of variables, we believe, including the metaphysical. We teach people about what is seen and not seen, because the unseen is a big part of who we are. Everything begins and ends with God, we believe. He is the source, and He is the final destination. And that the world exists in the context of both the seen and the unseen. Just as you were designed to be seen and unseen, so we are as well. Rudolf Bultmann was a famous theologian in 1941, and he made this speech. And like I said, this is pretty heady stuff, but this is the kind of stuff I read before I go to bed. This is his speech in 1941. The cosmology of the New Testament is essentially mythical in character. The world is viewed as a 3-storied structure within the earth, with the earth in the center, the heaven above, the underworld beneath. History does not follow a smooth, unbroken course. It is set in motion and controlled by supernatural forces. This aeon, held in bondage by Satan, sin, and death, and hastens towards its end. That end will come very soon and will take the form of a cosmic catastrophe. It will be inaugurated by the woes of the last time. Then the judge will come from heaven, the dead will rise, the last judgment will take place, and people will enter into eternal salvation and damnation. This, then, is a mythical view of the world in which a New Testament presupposes when it presents the event redemption, which is the subject of its preaching. Can Christian preaching expect modern people to accept the mystical view that the world of this world is true? To do so would be both senseless and impossible. It would be senseless because there is nothing specifically Christian in the mythical view of the world as such. It is simply the cosmology of a pre-scientific age. Again, it would be impossible because nobody can adopt the view of the world as a matter of choice. It has already been determined by our place in history. It is impossible to use electric light and wireless and to avail ourselves of modern medical and surgical discoveries and at the same time to believe in the New Testament world of spirits and miracles. The real purpose of myth is not to present an objective picture of the world as it is, but to express human understanding of themselves in the world in which they live. Myths should be interpreted not cosmologically, but and this is why I'm tired, anthropologically, or better still, existentially. Hence, the importance of the New Testament mythology lies not in its imagery, but its understanding of existence to which it enshrines. The real question is whether this understanding of existence is true. Faith claims that it is. And faith ought not to be tied down to the imagery of the New Testament mythology. Our task is to produce an existential interpretation of the dualistic mythology of the New Testament. We have to discover whether the New Testament offers us an understanding of ourselves, which it will challenge in a genuine existential decision. That kind of gobbledygook is completely foolish. Written and preached by a man, and guess where he lived while he did this? Nazi Germany. It was right in front of him, and he couldn't see it. This is a foolishness of our age. This pride of life that humanity gets, where we think that miracles are silly, that everything are myths. Richard Dawkins compares the supernatural of the Christian belief to a big spaghetti monster, because Christianity and spaghetti monsters have so much in common. C.S. Lewis writes, this reason the question whether miracles occur can never be answered simply by experience. Every event which might claim to be a miracle is in the last resort something presented to our senses, something seen, heard, touched, smelled, or tasted. And our senses are not infallible. If anything extraordinary seems to have happened, we can always say that we have been the victims of an illusion. If we hold a philosophy which excludes the supernatural, this is what we always shall say. What we learn from experience depends on the kind of philosophy we bring to experience. It is therefore useless to appeal to experience before we settled as well as we can the philosophical question. What's he saying there? Well, in the studies and papers and documentaries and movies where I've seen science try to explain away God, I've looked at the hollow arguments, I've looked at their explanations, I've looked at all those things, and I've come to this conclusion. People are of one of two camps. They either are open to the existence of a great triune God, or miracles don't exist because they simply do not want them to. And God does not exist because they simply don't want him to exist. Why? Why? Because deep in the human nature, we don't want there to be miracles. We don't want there to be God. Why? Because the next question you get is there a God? Is, what does he want from me? And if we believe in a God and we follow him and we trust him and we know he's there, the questions of what does he say to us? What does he believe? What kind of things are important to him? And worse yet, will I have to stand before him at the end of my life and give an account? These are the things that make people tremble. But I want to tell you that miracles do exist. I've encountered them. I've experienced them. I've heard testimonies of them. And I have, with my own hands, eyes, Sight, taste, and touch. Experience them. Miracles are amazing things. And Paul here in this great epic journey where as a prisoner he's being taken in shackles before a Roman emperor was the most dangerous thing on that ship. He was more dangerous than the crew. He was more dangerous than the soldiers. He was more dangerous than the storm. Why? Because he was connected to his God. And as such, he was the apex predator of that ship. I'll walk you through just a couple things, and I'm sure that a few of you will have questions or have dropped off to sleep and then would like to get a coffee and head home. First is this: miracles are what happens when an all-powerful, loving God works in a fallen, broken world. Miracles are not miracles to God. They're just God being God. God is the author of all the laws that we have to obey, the laws of gravity, laws of thermodynamics, laws of all those things. We have to live in this world with our limitations. We do, like we're part of it. God does not. He's the author of them. You know, it goes without saying, but one of the most amazing occurrences is the resurrected Christ after he rises from the dead. He breaks Newton's 3 laws in his new resurrected body. He passes through solid walls. He travels great distances in unbelievable time. And then he ascends to the heaven. Well, so much for gravity. Isn't that amazing? Christ was showing what we will be when we are given our new resurrected bodies. And the laws that restrict us now, laws of gravity, and laws of gravity have been harder on some of us than others. You start feeling things pulling down, right? Laws of solids. If you've ever stumped your toe on a coffee table or stepped on a piece of Lego, space matters. Things matter. They can hurt, right? And to travel, I mean, today, travel is in the news more than any other time, right? How long will it take me to get here? We went to my nephew's funeral. He might actually watch this message now, because my mother will tell him to. My nephew's wedding, I did the ceremony, and it was in Grand Bend, Ontario, which is on Lake Huron, beautiful little community. But it took us 4 hours to drive there. And we were coming back, and we had a GPS, and it kept telling us to get off the 401. And I thought, I'm not getting off it wants to take us to 407, I thought. But no, it didn't want to do that. And so at each exit, get off here. And it sounded a little more apprehensive. The more, we got, well, get off here, come back, don't, get in the right-hand lane, get off here. And I said to my wife, I said, what's it trying to do? She had no idea. So I thought, well, here's a little social experience. I'm going to follow the GPS. So I did it. So we got off the highway, turned on a light, went up a block. It brought us back on the highway. It took us into the express and into the collectors, back into the express again, and then back into the collectors. Can I tell you something, though? It was absolutely amazing. It was brilliant. It knew where cars were pulled over on the side. It moved us back and forth to the various streets and the 2 highways, the collectors and expresses, like one interchange right into another because it knew which one was moving fastest. It was incredible. It really was. But we worry about time, how much time it takes us to travel in different spaces. C.S. Lewis again, an impersonal God. Well and good, subjective, God of beauty, truth, and goodness, inside our own heads, better still. A formless life force surging through us, a vast power for which we can tap, best of all. But God himself, alive, pulling at the other end of a cord, perhaps approaching us at infinite speed. The hunter, king, husband, that is quite another matter. We want miracles in our context. We want them to be believable by us. We want to control them. One of the saddest things that happened in the middle of the 20th century is we stopped calling people preachers that preached miracles or did different things, and we started calling them healers. No man has never, ever through a miracle healed another person. Ever. It's God, and God alone. And that's where the beauty is. That's where the miracles come on. Miracles are God in action. And God is not a tame God. He can spring up all around you and in different ways. Paul, I'm sure, hungry, cold, battered by the wind, sleepless nights, probably wished that he was the source of miracles several times, but he wasn't. So he had to trust in the presence and the power of God, and he had to trust God to bring him through the storm. There were miracles, but they might not have been the miracles he wanted. Miracles occur within the messy reality of life. You know, sometimes it's amazing what God will do through you when there's things you wish God would do to you, right? Sometimes he prays for someone and they're made well. God heals them. Yet I still wear these reading glasses. Sometimes I wish that would get solved. Miracles occur within the messy reality of life. Why? Because miracles serve a purpose. They are God working in concert with us. They open the eyes of people to the possibility of the existence and power and salvation of God. When you think about it, even the fact that we are here in a room worshiping, listening, talking about an invisible God whose Son came to earth, born of a virgin, lived a sinless life, crucified, rose on the third day back to physical life, ascended to the Father, that he has gone ahead of us and prepared a place for us and has been doing that ever since, and someday will come back in the sky to bring us back. You know, if you were a cynic and you never heard that, you thought, you believe that? What's wrong with you? That's crazy stuff. Yet here we are listening to it. Why? Because it is the only reality that makes sense. It is the only reality that makes sense. Have confidence that God will work through your life. Miracles will happen. Miracles happen when you pray. Miracles happen when you take time to cross a room and to reach out to someone. Miracles happen when you listen to the promptings of the Holy Spirit and that he works through you. Are miracles a part of your life? Or are miracles something you think just happened to you? Do you pray for miracles? When was the last time you've been in a tight spot and you didn't just pray to cope, but you actually prayed to prosper? You prayed to hope. You prayed to move beyond it. When we move back to the college, I have no interest in filling a room again. And I have no interest in filling a room full of people that want to come and sit and soak. No, we're going to war, people. We're going to serve. We're going to let those people know, those thousands of people at Sir Sanford Fleming College, the staff, the student administrative council, and the students, that there is a God who loves them and there is a hope in this world. As they walk around and as they experience and ask questions why, we want to represent to them a community where people love each other and sacrifice for each other, where people trip over themselves to serve, and where God is at work in our midst. We are traveling into the enemy's territory, and you know what? They haven't got a chance. As long as we stay true to who we are and the fact that we are experiencing and a part of the presence of God, miracles will happen. C.S. Lewis says there comes a moment when people who have been dabbling in religion, man's search for God, suddenly draw back. Suppose we really found him. We never meant to come to that. We're suppose he has found us. That's the kind of God we need. Ask God to do miracles. A little faith goes a long way. C.S. Lewis again, that hierarchical inequality, the need for self-surrender, the willing sacrifice of self to others, hold sway in the realm beyond nature. It is indeed only love that makes a difference. All those very same principles which are evil in the world of selfishness and necessity are good in the world of love and understanding. We live as a contradictory to this world. We are apex predators. We stand out. We are dangerous. We are the people of God. And he has called us to go into the world making disciples. And a lot of people will go, what about me? Are my needs going to be met? Your needs are only met in the loss of life to Christ. If you want to prosper, give. If you want to lead, serve. If you want to change, pray. If you want to learn, study the scriptures. Submit to their principles. And God will do a great work in you. And you will wake up one day looking back on the years and going, what a ride. I never could have predicted that I would be here and I would be who I am today. I had a few mentors when I was a teenager. I needed them. I was out of control Christ follower going about making all kinds of attempts at Christ. And God, he somehow found a way to work through this gangly, hyperactive teenager. And I remember at my high school, it was my first church plant. I met a teacher there. She was an English and art teacher. And she was a follower of Christ. She went to an Anglican church. And she remembered a time, years before that, about a decade before that, when there was a Christian fellowship at our high school. And she longed for those days. And so I got together with a couple of Christian buddies and said, why don't we start doing that? And we thought, what time would be an ideal time to get a group of teenagers to come out and hear about God outside of school hours? And we picked 7 o'clock in the morning on Tuesday mornings. You know, the freaky thing happened. It started to fill up. It was the most interdenominational thing I've ever been part of. There were Brethrens, there were Anglicans, there were Salvation Army, there were Pentecostals, there were Baptists. There were all different kinds of people. Did I say brethren? There were a lot of brethren there too. And every Tuesday morning, they would come in at 7 o'clock, and I'd watch people shuffle in that room, and I'd think, what a miracle. And we were hungry for God, and we grew, and we filled that classroom full of people. And God worked. And we created a presence in our high school. Followers of Christ, seeing each other in the hallway, sharing God's hope, praying for miracles. We had no fear. Nothing could stand against us. That was probably one of the first miracles I ever experienced. I remember I worked with a wonderful organization called InterVarsity for Christ, and they equipped me, they trained me, they taught me. There was a local representative called Kim Beard. Yes, his name was Kim. And he was a wonderful man, bearded guy, and he was humble, and he was also willing to work with a hyperactive teenager. And I'll never forget, I told our regional youth coordinator, Lori Gibbons, who just passed away a few months ago, great man of God, came in and told us that, and took a room full of teenagers who were hungry for God, and he said, I can't tell you what it means to me to sit here and to see you coming out at 7 o'clock in the morning on a Tuesday morning to learn about God, and to see this room full of hungry Christians. And he said, when I was your age, I wasn't like you. I'd been brought up in the church, but I was a rebel. He said, and there's nothing my buddies and I like better than to sit in the back row and mock whoever was preaching and laugh at them. And then he said, one Sunday, they were sitting at the back, and a man came up for prayer to the front of the church. He had a hole, quite literally, in his head where cancer had eaten it away. And the elders of the church went down and they prayed for him. And he said, to his shock and horror, he watched skin grow and cover the man's wound as he was healed. And he said, it took that shocking a miracle in order to me to go, oh boy, maybe this God thing isn't a joke. And he said, yet here all you are, worshiping, learning about God. And it didn't take a miracle like that for you to be here. And the miracle is you. And that was an amazing experience, and probably the beginning of me beginning things, as I always have. So as we move forward, Gorth Community Church, are you ready to roll up your sleeves? You can answer audibly if you want. Okay. People online, wave at the screen. Okay. Are you willing to give and serve? Volunteer. Are you willing when new people walk in the door to go over and ask them questions and listen to them and learn about them and love them and remember them? Are you willing to do that? Are you willing to give up your seat, your parking space? Are you willing to do those things so that Jesus can work in the lives of believers? Because if we do, miracles are not going to be a rare occurrence in this church. We're going to see the greatest miracle change lives. And that's all I got to say about that. So, I'm tired. I got that out. We got a couple minutes for questions. Does anybody have any questions? About today's topic? Well, you all showed up in 1 week. Surely one of you's got a question, eh? Anybody? Yes.
We're taking the time to talk about miracles. And the older I get, the more I'm convinced that we need to tell our stories, that we need to remind ourselves and each other about the goodness of God, because we get busy, we get distracted, and I think there's something amazing about telling our stories. And when I think of miracles, I think of a couple of things. There's so many times in our lives where we had real needs and didn't really have a great strategy on how to meet those needs, that I suppose in some circumstances people would say, God provided, but some would say, well, it was just a circumstance. It just, you can't say that was God because it was subtle. It was something that, well, yeah, okay, this worked together and that worked together, and then it all worked out. But I know it was my God that provided for me. And I can't even begin to count the number of times that has happened in our lives.
Yeah.
We've seen God at work, but we've also had times where we've seen absolute miracles where there is no other way. I remember we were just with our family, and Scott's sister became very, very sick very quickly. She had viral encephalitis, and there's a few health people here that know what that means. And she was taken into the hospital, very, very sick. And her husband Dave was at the hospital. We went over to take care of our nephews and niece, and she wasn't supposed to live. They said that she was in a coma. They said if she lives, she will be a vegetable for the rest of her life. There's no way that she's going to make it. But this weekend, at my nephew's wedding, my sister-in-law and I danced our faces off. And God restored her and healed her. And they literally put on her chart, unexplained miracle.
Yeah.
Because she has full capacity in every way. She walks, she talks, she functions. She's a whirlwind of a woman. And I'm so thankful because I know that my God touched her. And so I think it's amazing that we're spending this time talking about miracles. And I think it's a good reminder of us to tell our stories, to encourage one another with the little ones that seem like they're coincidences that we know are really God, and to tell the big stories of when God is at work in ways that none of us can explain. So thank you for taking the time to do that today.
Thanks, sweetie. Yeah, that was amazing. Just to be a part of that was unbelievable. She goes from being in a coma to 2 days later running her daycare again. That's crazy. Yeah, God is good. You know the great thing about miracles is no matter what problem you have, what challenge you have, what we've got ahead of us, tragedy or loss or anything, when we open the door of our hearts and let God intervene, freaky stuff can happen. Really crazy stuff. It opens our minds to the possibilities of a great and powerful God intervening. So, in the awe of God, we'll let you go with that. A couple of things. One, if you choose to give, we have our offering envelopes and baskets over there. We've got a big move ahead of us. And just going to ask, if you've got a moment today just to stay behind, have a coffee, interact, but help us stack these chairs. We'll just stack them and put them against that wall. Help us clean up a bit. And I would love it if some of you were to do something that's almost impossible. Take these posters down and get the sticky stuff off the back without destroying the poster. If you can accomplish that, great. If you can't, it's all good. It would take a miracle. All right? So if some of you want to help with that, and if you're able to do it, great. Like I said, if not, it's okay. We've got copies, like we've got them on digital and everything like that, so we can reproduce them if we want. But we would love to be able to save them, because every once in a while we need to take these series out and go, that was a series where my life changed. That was a series where I came to Christ. That was a series when I learned to think differently. That was a series where I chose to read my Bible. That was a series where God changed my marriage. You know, they're good memories, these series, aren't they? Yeah, a lot happened. So if you can preserve them, great. If not, like I said, no problem. So with that in mind, may God go with you. Open your mind and your heart to what God can do, because he will surprise you with his presence. Next week, we're bringing in cake for the church upstairs to thank them. I figure nothing goes better than cake. We're doing the music, we're doing the preaching, and I'm trying to, this week, find words to express to them what they've meant to us this past couple of years, and to thank them appropriately. So come out next week, celebrate with us as we enjoy their presence. And then the week after, we're going to have an open house at our new facility, and we'll ask you to do something there. Bring a bag lunch, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the rooms, we'll show you where we are, we'll wander around, we'll try not to break anything, and we'll talk about possibilities and dream together, and I'll share a message that I've written about where I see us going forward. And so mark those 2 dates, and we'll see you then. God bless you. Thanks for being with us.